Well, you probably heard the story that the date of Christmas was borrowed by ancient Christians from the birthday of the invincible sun god, and therefore it's an example of a borrowing from paganism by Christianity, a narrative that's, well, very common in Sunday supplements and popular literature. And indeed, there are various things. For example, the sites of the major Roman basilicas are on the sites of temples and so forth. But I think there's a good reason to suppose that this borrowing is, well, mythological. The reason for this is the earliest date we have for the identification of the 25th of December as the birth of Christ, as Christmas, as we call it, occurs in the commentary on Daniel by Hippolytus of Rome, which is dated to about 209. It's possible that this little passage is a later interpolation, but no more than 10 or so years later, perhaps. While the very first example of the celebration of the birthday of the invincible sun, the sun god, on the 25th doesn't occur until the reign of the Emperor Aurelius, who reigned between 270 and 275. So we're talking about a 60-year gap between these, and the earlier one is the Christian identification. Some who have acknowledged this have even speculated that the pagans borrowed the date of the sun god's birthday from the date Christians celebrated Christmas. Now, that being the case, or even if the dating of the document of Hippolytus is actually an interpolation even after the 270s, there's a good biblical argument for why the 25th is the birthday of Jesus. We know from Luke's Gospel the time between the Annunciation by the angel Gabriel to Mary, and which would be the conception of Christ, to the conception of John the Baptist is, going backwards 6 months, because the angel says to Mary, your kinswoman Elizabeth is now in her 6th month, so we're 6 months apart. And in fact, we celebrate the birthday of John the Baptist 6 months after Christmas in June, on the 24th of June. But why the 24th of June? We know that the story of Zacharias, that is to say, John the Baptist's father, the story is told also in Luke that he was in the temple performing sacrifice when he was struck dumb by the angel who had told him that his wife was going to bear a child because of his unbelief. And the ancient Christians identified this activity of him in the temple, since it says he was in the Holy of Holy Places, with the rites of Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur happens near the end of September. And in fact, some early Christians thought it happened on September 24th, although it's actually a lunar date, so it moves back and forth, but that's about the right time. Now, if his wife conceived when he returned home, which is the usual story, that would put 9 months later, what would we have? We have the 24th of June. So we have a biblical warrant for the birth of John the Baptist in June at the end, on the 24th. And we're told that Jesus is going to be born 6 months later, as I mentioned earlier. And so we have Christmas on the 25th of December, the night of the 24th, actually. And between the 24th and the 25th. Now, this is also fitting because in ancient times, and this has often been given as the reason for choosing that date, is that ancient people believed that the shortest day of the year was the 25th of December and the longest day of the year was the 24th of June. And since John himself said that I must decrease, he must increase, meaning Christ must increase, what do we have there? We have the light is going to become shorter and shorter after John the Baptist, while after Jesus' birth on the 25th, it's going to be longer and longer. So even if the date was chosen for biblical reasons, which I believe it was, it fits beautifully into also the cosmic pattern of the year.